we have Whitney Hastings, who's been instrumental in this entire process. She is with the National Cancer Institute as a Senior Technology Transfer Manager. We also have Hannah Farquhar. She's with the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory as a Business Development Executive. And Maria, I'm not going to try to butcher your name, so I'm going to let you introduce yourself because I'm afraid I might actually butcher your name, but you're a patent advisor with the USDA. Would you tell us your name, please?
Christopher Hartwig.
Okay.
So I did that to touch my mother-in-law. Ever since I've touched her, everybody else I speak with.
Hannah, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what you've seen that works. What makes a good submission from your perspective?
Sure. I had some extra time in my schedule, so I took this on. And I have to say, judging has been an incredibly rewarding and educational experience for me. The number of submissions we judge, especially in the early days, Whitney's changed it up a bit and made it easier on us. But in the early days, I was reading 85 to 100 submissions within a month period and judging them. And I learned so much about tech transfer, and the broad knowledge that it gave to me was amazing. But it also gave me tidbits that I could take into my own job that I thought it is why I have continued to do it year after year. It's very rewarding, the amount of information that comes in. Now, and to answer your question, I'm going to go into the panelists that we have heard from today have been absolutely amazing. No wonder they win, because they get it. They totally get it. Going back to session 2, and to me the themes were creativity and impact. And that's what I look at as a judge, is when I read through it the first time, is there clear creativity identified? And is the impact real? And that's what you heard about over and over and over again. And then in the last session, a lot of talk about tone. And that's what makes, when you are reading 85 to 100 of these, to have a story communicated well in a great tone makes my life a lot easier, makes it more enjoyable to read through these. And so those points that you have heard throughout the day, take them in and ingest them and put them into your nominations, and you will be a winner.
What are some of your points that you think make a really good submission?
Well, I'll start with, so one of the things that was mentioned was creativity. And some people don't realize that creativity is not the great invention, but how it was creatively transferred. And so I read this wonderful submission for an invention, but nothing to do with how it was transferred. So that is the worst one that I've seen. I've read some wonderful submissions for wonderful inventions that really have not much to do with the tech transfer, with the transfer of the technology to another place. This was unique about the way the technology was transferred and and how it's had an impact. And those are the two things that really have made a difference, just at least when I'm grading and judging, because I also was judging to 86 and things like that. And it was really, really hard, but yes, that's it.
Yeah, I too have had the opportunity to do some judging at the regional level. I didn't have 86, but I found that, folks did have an exciting technology, but hadn't articulated, impact. And I thought that was, really critical, especially if you're going to choose a technology. And I think that comes from being really excited about the technology, but forgetting that there's something about it you've got to point out to somebody. Whitney, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I want to put the caveat out there that you don't have to judge 86. You always have the opportunity to judge as many as you would like. It is a tremendous learning experience to see how other agencies practice tech transfer. Hands down, that's why I did it. I think Hannah and I we joined the awards judging pool around the same year, around 2016. So, so let me just put that out there. But for me, a lot of the tips that we recently learned really help me when I'm reading through lots of submissions. Help me, when you help the judges see how you've answered the questions that we've asked, like, what are the goals? What are the objectives? Can you tell me what is truly excellent about this tech transfer story? That's really what I think some people miss. If you're getting an award, you need to think it when you're writing these, what makes this special and not just the run-of-the-mill tech transfer licensing agreement? And then be sure to put in all those details. More times than I can count, I notice that people don't actually tell you what kind of license this was transferred under, or whether there's even IP associated with the license. And so that, you know, that really matters, especially if it's an excellence in tech transfer or an impact type award. So I think the best.
Whitney, if I could jump in for a second, you don't necessarily have to use all the words. Sometimes I find these submissions are overly packed because they're trying to use the entire word count allotted. And if the story is good and the story is told in half the words, it's just as impactful as if you use all the words.
Yes, I didn't mean to infer word count. So just make sure that you don't leave critical details out. Yeah. I think some of the best submissions that I've personally read are not the longest ones. Probably the middle of the road. They don't use all the word count. And they can clearly and succinctly tell the transfer story without taking me on a really long, winding journey as to why and what this technology is. Focus on the big picture. Yeah.
Have you guys seen where a submission is kind of obviously taking a round peg and trying to fit it into a square hole? I mean, that's why we started with the second panel. And everyone's laughing because I think you get where I'm going with that. I mean, how do you suggest someone try to avoid this? And, you know, from your perspective, what are you seeing when you do that? That's part of the problem. How do you avoid that type of submission? Is it a lack of time? Do you think when you read that, do you think maybe they just didn't review the criteria correctly? Or what is it you think from your perspective?
I can jump in. Yeah, I think one of the, you know, they could be a bevy of problems, but when you're judging a bunch, you don't spend too much time thinking why. You just move on because it's not responsive to the criteria. But I mean, there could be a number of issues. It could be not understanding the criteria. I also see, and I have to put a judge filter on, because every agency does tech transfer differently, and every agency values the outcomes of tech transfer differently. But what is the same to all tech transfer is that it starts with technology, there's a value proposition, and a lot of brokering work goes into creating that transfer. And so that does stay the same. And if you, like Whitney just said, if you stick to those high level trends and impact and creativity, you're going to stay there. Whereas where I tend to get lost is when the values of the agency's tech transfer are embedded in there, and it's not the same as my agency. And so I don't fully understand it.
I think I'll also add to Hannah that I've seen some nominations that were put into categories, maybe because it's not something we offer. They really want this person to win an FLC award, but yet the story doesn't match up. And so, you know, we're always available as judges, the awards committee, to talk to any potential nominator about, hey, I have this excellent person or excellent story. Could you tell me what it actually fit into this particular criteria? So we are available to like help work with you to say, yeah, that might not be the best fit, or that's a great idea. Maybe we should add this for a category for next year. So we are always open, but yeah, I think carefully reading the criteria. We also list the point scores next to each question in the criteria. So if you take impact, for example, the impact section, that criteria is weighted super high to kind of emphasize, hey, we're really talking about what's the end impact here, not what are the tech transfer mechanisms. Those are important, but it can kind of gear you to where you should be focusing as you're writing the nomination.
Well, how important is organization, do you guys think, is for submission? I mean, we've heard folks talk about headers and things like that. Tell me, what do you think about organization when you see a submission that's not organized? Do you think that's a distraction, Maria?
In my mind, it is, because I tried to go by the criteria, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out what parts of the criteria are they really answering at a certain point. So when it's organized and they're clicking on every single thing that was asked for, it makes my life so much easier.
Hannah, what do you think?
Did you address that to me? I'm sorry, I'm having
Yeah,
connection issues.
sorry. That's all right, Hannah. What are your thoughts? I mean, in reading 86, I mean, obviously, organization has to make a difference. Sorry, Whitney, I'm gonna get you with the 86 every time, but I'm pretty sure not all
No,
86
I mean,
were organized.
no. But I will say, if you look in the slides from the last session, it was effective use of bullets. A giant, 25, 30 bullets of the technical specifications of the invention. That's hard. It's hard to get past that. Because I'm looking for a succinct description of the technology, but I'm first looking for the problem it solves. Because to me, that's going to give me more insight into what the tech transfer was and what the tech transfer story is. So at 30 bullets of the technical specifications, especially if it's not my field, some physics-based sensor of some sort, it's really hard, really hard.
Yeah.
Whitney, what do you think?
And I think a lot of us who do judge, we put the submissions in buckets. Like these are really good because I can clearly find all the criteria answered, the flow and the storytelling is nice. They've clearly demonstrated to me that they've got a winning submission. And then there are those that don't organize well, and you're like, I like the story or I like the tech transfer element of it, but I can't find all the pieces and they don't seem to connect quite, or something's missing. Well, when you have such a phenomenal set of submissions that come to us every year, like the ones that hit the top, most favorite bucket, those are the ones that are gonna make it. And so we award probably about 30%, somewhere between 25 and 30% each year of winners. And so being well organized and making it through my first read easily and quickly, and yes, this is awesome, that's the way to do it. Otherwise, you get kind of shoveled in the like middle bucket or the last bucket where you don't even answer the questions. And I don't even take a second look at the last bucket. So I don't know if you guys have anything else to add as seasoned judges.
So basically, organization can, if it's disorganized, it's a distraction from the actual value on different parts of it, I guess. Would that be a good way to summarize that?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Actually can harm the submission if it's disorganized. You could have a good submission, but being disorganized doesn't help it.
No. And it's, you know, sometimes you can read through the disorganization and you really see, and this is an excellence in tech transfer, but you have to work harder for that. And, you know, typically, you know, we're all human. So unfortunately, the point total is going to be lower if I have to work harder. I try not to. I go back in and do a second run and adjust my point totals based on those bins, you know, those early bins to, you know, more nuanced judging. But we're human. We're all, this is being judged by real humans.
No roads.
Go ahead,
And
Whitney.
I want to say, I hope that for those people who are submitting, that you review the comments that some of the judges provide, because we do make those available. There have been a few at a couple of labs where I thought this could be really award-winning tech transfer. And I tried to gear them with my comments that this would be great, please submit next year. So sometimes when you maybe are a little rough on the organization or you don't quite have all your story right, it's okay to submit again. Some of them I wish I saw again and I haven't yet.
Yeah, I think that was a key takeaway from today is that, you know, if at first you don't succeed, you know, that old adage, try again. And I think a lot of folks just kind of give up if they don't win the first time. They maybe think that no one's going to try a second time and don't submit. So we have about 8 minutes left. I want to open it up to questions from anyone who is in attendance, any of the attendees. And also I want to give an opportunity for these presenters to sort of summarize and give their key takeaways, because you all have a vast amount of experience in this process, so that folks can take away, you know, from your experience what they need to do going forward. And just kind of start with Whitney and, you know, give us a couple minutes of your sum up of, you know, not only just this session, but the day and what you take away from the process and what you want to convey to the audience.
Thank you. Use those tips that we learned today in terms of subtitles and bullets effectively, as Hannah added. And be sure you also don't leave out the critical information, such as that are contained within the criteria questions. You know, we're all here judging and volunteering because we love to read about these stories and hear about tech transfer successes. So the better submissions, the better for us, the better for FLC and the labs as well. So if 1 year I could get 100%, 100 scores, that would be phenomenal.
I do have a couple questions here, so let me go through those really quickly. One person said, would you give credit, this is for the judges, if the answer was elsewhere in the entry and not in the particular question section, I guess it's saying posed? Would you still give credit? I did see that in some of the ones I reviewed. So the response was not where you would normally see it, but it was answered, but not where you thought you would see it. So Hannah, you're nodding. Would you still give credit for it if it's not?
I'm not an attorney, but I'm going to use the legal answer. It depends. If it's alluded to in the section and it just became clearer in a different section, then maybe. If it's not even mentioned at all, sometimes I have seen that the excellence is put maybe in the impact section. And so I've read the entire submission and I get to the bottom like, oh, that's why it was excellent. And it's just too late, Maybe they might get a few extra points in my second run through, but yeah, usually not. So it depends. It depends.
Maria, what about you?
I was going to say that, like, most probably they're not going to get all the points, because if I have to go looking for the answer and reading the thing 3 times, it's not going to get all the points. So the chance of winning that award is going to be lower.
I feel like it falls into the middle bucket, if you will.
Yeah. Another question we got was, do you have any comments on nominations that have a large number of nominees? I would think that these nominations need to be very well written to describe their role. So Whitney, go ahead, what do you think about that? I mean, I've seen somewhere, honestly, it was so many nominees, it was confusing to follow, hard to follow, and difficult to kind of make out who was doing what. But I'm curious as to what you guys think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we don't want to exclude anybody that truly is award worthy and should be a nominee in any sort of award. We do have a separate section in most of the categories where you can write out their role and tell what that particular person did. And then maybe, you know, if you're writing this and it's starting to sound complex as you're writing it with all these nominees, maybe you could abbreviate like the tech transfer office team or, you know, group things into buckets so that you can tell the story more effectively, but still in that section where we provide the opportunity to kind of define who's who, do it in that space.
And remember to do it in that space. I've read nominations where they said 3 different people were nominated and that space only had 1 person that we're talking about. So
Yeah.
remember that if you want 3 nominated people, you want to mention them where you're supposed to say what they're doing for the award.
That's a good point, Maria. So Hannah, we've got like 3 minutes left. Give us your final thoughts, and then Maria.
This has been an amazing event. I think, you know, anyone who really wants to get more awards granted should go back and truly listen to the advice of the second and third panel. I mean, they hit the nail on the head. They got it all: creativity, impact, and write the story. Tell the story. Don't tell the details in you know, in tabular format, because I know we're all, many of us are scientifically trained, and so we have a penchant in that way. But I think you have to get writing help or learn how to tell the story in a narrative format with a good tone and be clear on that creativity and impact.
In my mind, one thing that makes a big difference when I'm judging is ensure that each question the criteria for each section is addressed. So when it says, what is the impact? Then put the impact there. Who was nominated and what did they do in the process? Put their names and what they did in the process. And one thing I just remember from last year is there was this one place where they had 2 people listed at the end as the nominees, but there were 10 people that were listed that participated in it. So that's not going to get a lot of points in my mind.
Yeah, make sure your nomination is consistent throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very good suggestion. And my final suggestion to everyone, having been a judge as well, is to step away from it, let colleagues read them. Let someone not close to the process read it, just to make sure it's clear, make sure it's succinct, make sure they understand and know that you know the criteria, know the questions, and know that, you know, they can read it to see if you answered the question. Because if it's asking for impact, someone who is going to read it, who's not close to it, can tell whether you've answered the question. And I think that's the best thing they can do that adds value to the process, is step away from it, let someone else read it throughout the process. Don't wait till the very end, just to make sure you haven't, you know, wasted a lot of time and you can get adequate feedback, and start early so that you can be successful in the long run. So with that, we're on 3 o'clock. I'd like to again thank all of our panelists who have contributed here today, and the 3 that we have here. We really appreciate it.